Welcome to Empower Her Radio, the space for powerhouse women ready to step into their next level of abundance, purpose, and personal freedom. I'm Dr. Corey Wynn, a high performance coach, doctor of physical therapy, philanthropist, and business consultant. I help ambitious women align with their highest calling, expand their wealth and impact, and create a life that feels as good as it looks. If you're a high achieving woman who's built success yet finds yourself craving more alignment, more purpose, more ease, you're in the right place. Here, we bridge the gap between ambition and fulfillment. Through transformative conversations and proven strategies, you'll gain the courage to step into the fullest expression of you. Build a powerhouse business that aligns with your expertise and divine gifts, and lead your life, both personally and professionally, with unshakable confidence, worthiness, and compassion. This is about expansion, legacy, and owning your power unapologetically. You already have everything inside of you to create a life of unlimited possibility. It's time to unlock it. Welcome to your next level. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Empower Her Radio, the space where we uplift, inspire, and equip high-achieving women to step into their fullest potential. Today, we're diving into a conversation that every ambitious woman needs to hear: how to break free from burnout, let go of perfectionism, and redefine success on your own terms. Our guest today, Jo Stone, knows this journey firsthand. A former corporate executive turned entrepreneur, Jo is the founder of the Balance Institute, where she helps ambitious women overcome burnout, rewire subconscious patterns, and create meaningful, balanced lives. Her work has supported nearly 400 women in breaking free from perfectionism, reclaiming their energy, and thriving without sacrificing themselves. But Jo's journey to balance wasn't easy. After burnout landed her in the hospital, she was forced to reevaluate everything and rebuild her life in alignment with what truly mattered. Now, as a coach, speaker, and mother of two, she's passionate about equipping women with practical strategies to stop running on empty and start living fully. Welcome to this show.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
So you have a lot going on, and I know our audience wants to hear all about it, but let's start with your journey. Tell us how you ended up where you are.
Yeah, it's been a journey that I never would have expected. It was certainly not one that was planned. So after university here, as we call it in Australia, or college, I had a very sort of typical career path. I went into marketing. I was very ambitious, so I ascended the ranks quite quickly. My goal in corporate was to become a chief in my titles, become a chief, and I wanted to be in a global listed company, and I wanted to have at least an Asia Pacific role. So by 32, I had an Asia Pacific role, teams in 5 countries, big budgets, lots of travel. And at that point, I had 2 little kids. So then I had a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old.
Oh, wow.
We also, on top of that, then built our dream house, which is very much an Australian thing to do, sort of knock an old house down and build a new one. So I'd been building a house. I was on a not-for-profit board, which was something that I wanted to start my, non-executive director career early. So I was on a not-for-profit board for 4 years. I was a netball coach. I was on the school P&C, like the parents committee. I was doing it all.
Yes, you were.
Doing it all.
Yes, you were.
Yeah, like every good high achiever. And what tended to happen was I was following what I thought would make me happy. And I would have sworn blue murder that that was what was going to make me happy, that I wanted the big house with the pool and the chickens and the pets and the kids and the 2 new cars in the driveway and, the suit and the, trotting in my black heels down the airport, with my little wheelie bag to go for my day trip to another place. It was on the surface what I thought I wanted. But it was at a point when I'd sort of a lot of things I'd put off until we get into the house, when we have more space, and then got in the house and went, oh, I'm still not happy. And I'm still feeling guilty all the time. I'm exhausted. I now feel trapped because I wanted to leave my job, but I had such a huge mortgage that I couldn't leave my job because I had to find an equivalent salary. So suddenly I'm trapped in this
Mhm.
race for the with the Joneses, which I never necessarily subscribed to, but somehow found myself in. My
Mhm.
husband was miserable in his job. He'd had lots of mental health struggles. And yeah, I remember waking up one morning going, really? Is this it? Like, surely there's meant to be something more. This emptiness feeling, never being present with the kids. And I still remember one evening, she was probably maybe 5 or 6 and was learning to read and was noticing that I was skipping pages of the bedtime story because I was in such a hurry to get back to my laptop to do the thing that I thought I needed to do for tomorrow. So
Mhm.
that was one of those wake up call moments of, oh dear, I've just been caught out skipping pages.
Mhm.
What
Well,
really
and
are my
that
priorities here?
that is this it? I hear so many women. We've
Mm,
checked all the boxes, we've climbed all the ladders, we've done all the
mm,
things, and it's like you wake up one morning and think, "Oh my gosh, I've arrived. What was I
mm,
striving for? This is not what I thought it was
mm.
going to be."
No. And so I then went on this journey of saying, all right, well, maybe I need to change things. I wanted to change roles, but I couldn't afford to. And house prices in Australia tend to be a little silly. So our area skyrocketed. So we thought, all right, well, let's cash in. I sold the forever house after 18 months. We did
Mhm.
things in that house that you would never do if you were going to flip it after 18 months, sold
Uh-huh.
it without having anything to go to. And that was I guess the first domino to fall of what I guess lovingly call the process of blowing up my life, of going, all right, I'm out. I'm out of this race with the
I love
Joneses.
that.
I'm gonna blow up everything that I think needs to go. So I
I
sold the
love that
house. That was the
so
first
much.
domino to fall. Then I could quit my job. Then my husband could quit his job. We bought another house, sort of a little bit further out of the city that was, a little more cost effective. And yeah, and then it was throughout all this, and this happened very, very quickly. We're talking in the space of 3 months, sort of all these just landmines just blew up. Our relationship was in a challenging place at that point in time because of everything going on with both of us.
Oh yeah.
And it was when so we'd sort of bought the new house. And again, I told myself, well, when we get into the new house and we take the financial pressure off, then I'll feel better. Then I'll feel better. And I just kept pushing myself and pushing myself. And it was at one point when I thought I was having an autoimmune attack because my body started then essentially shutting down because I had neglected it for so long. Not neglected it on a surface level. I mean, between having my 2 kids, I went and did triathlons. Like, could you do a more high achiever thing, right? I was
I was
training
gonna
in
say,
three
but the
disciplines.
level of stress.
But the level of stress and the level of cortisol. So while I was running and I was doing half marathons, and so I was exercising my body, I was just constantly fueled with cortisol and stress and pressure. And it was as I lay there on the hospital bed, thinking that I was about to be diagnosed with an incurable autoimmune disease. So, okay, I'm being told something here. There's a lesson for me in
Mhm.
this. And that at that point, I'd realized, okay, I'd swapped everything out. Hadn't quite swept out the husband. He's still around. But okay, house is gone, job is gone, financial pressure's gone. Okay, health's now gone to, going down the toilet. The only thing I haven't changed is me. Like, I'm the common denominator in all of this.
Mhm.
And so I then had to go on this quite excruciatingly painful journey of looking into, why do I feel this way? What have I missed? And started understanding concepts like subconscious mind and, generational conditioning and what's my
Mhm.
perfectionism and what's behind my high achiever. And so this beautiful exploration of deep dive into self-help, and I was no stranger to it. I'd read lots of books, I'd been on loads of leadership programs. I was always a high potential, and carted off to this 3-day retreat here and go and spend this time with this organizational psychologist. And so I was really, really self-aware, but I didn't know how to change. I could see what I was doing. I even knew where a lot of it came from, but I didn't have tools to actually drive the change that I was really looking for. So that began my multi-year journey to pull my life apart and work out, what do I really want? What does success actually mean to me, not what I think I should have, what my parents want me to have, what my friends want me to have. And then I basically put my life back together in a way that worked for me, which was very confronting for people around me because I didn't subscribe to a lot of things that they should. I mean, when we went to sell our house, my parents staged an intervention
Mm-hmm.
because they were like, this is you can't. My friends were like, but this is your dream house. You've wanted this for a decade. How can you just sell it without anywhere to go? This is irresponsible. You've got children. What are you going to do? Live on the street? I said, I don't know what the next step is, but I know I need to do this. There was another force driving me. I had this insane degree of faith and intuition that this is
Mm-hmm.
the journey that I had to go on. And part of that rediscovery of who I am and what I want has also been really connecting to that deeper voice of wisdom that
Mm-hmm.
I had as a child, but really got drained out in my sort of 20s and 30s.
Mm-hmm. I just want to take a minute to commend you for your tremendous courage because we unconsciously subscribe to what our parents want for us, what our friends want for us, where we think we should live and do and be. So taking that time to reflect and embody what you've learned and do it for you and your family is tremendous work. And the fact that you mention blowing up your life, I talk about that with my clients. Mentors have talked about if you don't feel like at some moment everything is falling apart, then you're not moving in the right direction because it
Mm,
will. So I
mm,
so love that. I started blowing up my life because it's true. You have to allow what you think you know to crumble
mm,
and then rebuild what truly aligns with me. Oh,
mm.
that that's so beautiful. And I hope that our listeners here today hear that courage because, and I'm sure that you hear this too, we're afraid. We're
Mm,
afraid to take that next step. We're afraid to step into the unknown. So when
mm,
a client comes to you feeling this way or
mm.
in the same type of situation, how do you help them overcome that fear of unknown, that fear of not knowing the how? I hope you're loving this episode. I just want to pop in and share something that could completely transform the way you think about building your business, aligning your sales with your mission and vision, and scaling your impact both personally and professionally. I want to share a free training, The Four Quadrants of Quantum Sales Growth, from the She Sells team. For entrepreneurs, sales professionals, and anyone building an empire who wants to sell in full alignment, attract high level clients with ease, and create exponential growth without pressure or burnout. This isn't about outdated sales tactics. It's about energetically aligning with your next level of success and stepping into a business that feels abundant, effortless, and scalable. If you're ready to uplevel your sales strategy, expand your reach, and quantum leap your results, grab your free copy now at www.elisearcher.com/CoreyWin. Now, let's get back to the episode.
Mm. And that's really what so much of my journey was actually letting go of the how, because I was in marketing. I could do a good campaign plan or a project plan. I could give you my traffic light system. I had color coordinated diaries. Like I was the how queen. You know? I knew
There's a
exactly.
reason that we met because we are so alike.
I could control the how. The how was going to happen on my terms, at my speed, when I wanted it to, how I wanted it to. Everyone else was going to be how I wanted it to. And really actually saying, I don't know what the next step is, and I'm okay with that.
Mhm.
One of my strongest, most visceral memories of that time was I was sitting in this beautiful house that I designed overlooking this garden the night before the auction. So the night before we were hopefully going to sell the house. And I was looking out at my beautiful copper water feature that I'd spent hundreds of hours sourcing through Pinterest and whatever else that, the 350 plants where I'd planted every single one. Just
Uh-huh.
everyone else had gone to bed. It was this beautiful still evening. All the lights were out because, of course, I, plan this beautiful garden with all this beautiful lighting, and just sitting there like with tears streaming down my face. And the I guess the narrative in my head was really, are you giving all this up? Are you really tapping out? Are you really prepared to do this? Because it was a really big deal to sell a forever home, uh,
Mhm.
and something that had so much of my heart and soul in it. It was almost like this, but then this voice just kept saying, "You love it, but you love freedom more." And
Mhm.
you have to follow that inner voice that says you don't feel free. Since I've learned that's a really big internal value of mine, I need to feel free. And that doesn't mean that I, go live on an island and screw life and all of those things. I
Right.
still have kids to
Right.
do activities and they go to school and I have all these things, but I didn't feel free.
Mhm.
And so what I help people do is, if you want to blow up your life, and you get this too, so many women come to me and say, "Joe, I just want a simple life and go live in the country and open an antique store." They just
Mhm.
they have this illusion that it's easier and simpler somewhere
Mhm.
else, but you go wherever you are. And
Mhm.
unless you learn to simplify yourself, the same patterns will come. We used to
Mhm.
dream about moving to the country, but I knew that, give it 3 months, the cafe I took over, or the antique store, I'd put in a new point of sale system.
Yeah.
Sales would be up. I'd have built an online presence. I'd be shipping globally. I'd be running, sourcing trips to China, and I'd be in the same position on minimum wage. So
Uh-huh.
who am I kidding? You can't deny that high achiever nature of you and wish you were someone else when you actually embrace it and say, how do I honor this part of me? But how do I learn to actually drive my brain rather than my brain driving me? Because that's really what happened. The conditioning took over, the perfectionism took over, the hustle muscle and the need to get it all done, need to control the how. That was my focus. And yet there was a whole other side of my intelligence, of my intuition, of my emotions that I'd completely suppressed. And so I was really, really out of balance. And when you start to have a roadmap, it can feel a lot less scary to start to blow up your life. And I really encourage people to get help before they do what I did, because that can be quite a destructive way. It's like blow it up. There are ways that you can get the outcome that I found without necessarily blowing everything up. And so that's why I
Mhm.
ended up starting my business, because I thought, okay, I found a way out. I found tools that worked for me. There are so many other women out there like me who dream of blowing up their life or dream of doing something different, but just need a roadmap, need a way of saying, okay, well, I don't maybe have the courage, or I don't know how. Can you show me a way? And that's what I
Mhm.
love doing, is I don't tell people the how, I give them the principles so they get to discover their own how.
Oh, I love that so much. And that just honoring your own intuition. You said
Mm,
that so many times, and I just want to really pinpoint that for a moment because, like you also said, we have that as children. We have this
mm,
innate knowing, we have this, and it slowly does get stripped away. So, being
mm,
able to, like I do, help your clients gain that clarity and be able to be still and not distracted long enough to hear that inner knowing
mhm.
is so powerful. And that's something that I've had to work on for a really long time, chasing the how. And my mentor looked at me one day and she said, "Corey, I want you to hear all of the love in this, but I need you to relax." Like we had gone through all the things we'd done, and it was like I needed that very blunt, okay,
Mm,
but here, this is what needs to happen now. And I think I'd be interested to hear your take on this, having done the marathons and been living on the cortisol. I do think that there's almost an addictive piece of that, of kind of
mm,
being on that high, living that high achieving, going, and a badge of honor that
mm.
oftentimes comes with that. Do you find either in your own story or the clients that you've worked with kind of having to peel those layers back and help them recognize that they're not defined by their achievements? and the,
Hmm.
and the check boxes.
Yeah, it's a complete unraveling of identity, that a journey that we have to go through, because that identity, which all stems from childhood, is very much wired to achievements, to goals. And it's really that, I guess, masculine energy, that a lot of
Hmm.
us talk about, that it's that hustle, it's the achieving, it's the striving, it's the ticking things off. And what tends to happen is that masculine energy shames your feminine side, your feminine energy. So the masculine energy says, you don't have time to rest. Have you seen what's on your list? You
Right.
haven't earned your rest. You don't deserve rest, typically because you're trying to do so much that you're stretched so thin. Therefore, you feel like you're failing in everything. So that energy says, double down, try harder, push harder, do more, and then you will feel that you're deserving of your rest. And yet we never, ever, ever gives ourselves permission to rest, to relax, to stop, because when your identity is so closely tied to achieving, the moment you stop achieving, you don't feel like you're worthy.
Hmm.
So unless we unravel the link between those achievements and our inner sense of self-worth, we'll never relax, we'll never slow down, and we will keep pushing and striving until something breaks, whether it's our health, our relationship, we break down at work, whatever it may be. That tends to be an inevitable path in some variation, unless we can do that work of decoupling, really reconnecting back to giving ourselves permission to put ourselves first. And that may mean that everybody else can get themselves toast for dinner, because right now you're done and you need to rest.
Right.
We don't have to be all the things for all the people. We don't have
Uh,
to be put ourselves last. And I think one of the best skills that I teach women is how to be selfish.
yeah.
Like the more women we can have being selfish, putting themselves first, because who benefits when a woman, especially a mother, lives on fumes? It's
Hmm.
insane. We've glorified this. I do everything for everyone and I'm a martyr and I go last. Like,
Yes.
no,
Yeah.
because your children get a grumpy, snappy, impatient, resentful version of you. Your partner just gets the dregs. They get even less than the kids. And then you completely abandon yourself, completely neglect yourself. And we're left there completely disconnected from who we are. And that's when all of these feelings of emptiness start to come up.
Well, and I'll never forget, I worked with a client not too long ago who was in that same space. And I don't know how often you find that your clients don't even know what they need. You know,
Mm.
they don't even know what they want. No one's asked them for many, many years. And so
Mm.
when you start to talk about self-care, it's like, I don't I don't know what brings me
Mm.
joy. And it's this path of, well, try this. What did you like when
Mm.
you were 10? You know, how do you help your clients not only find space for self-care, but find their joy again?
Yeah, a lot of that has to do with, you said a big part of it is the space, and a big part of it's the permission.
Hmm.
Because when you are a perfectionist, you feel like you have to do self-care right. And so we
Uh-huh.
tend to default to the bubble baths and the massages. And yet, if you haven't done the work on yourself, you end up feeling guilty the entire time you're having a massage. And so you don't actually enjoy it anyway. So it
I
actually
remember
becomes more guilt-inducing than fueling you.
this speaks to my soul so heavily because I remember going and getting my nails done. It's probably been a couple of years ago now. And it just sitting there and it taking so long. And same with sitting there and having my hair done and it taking so long, thinking of all the things I could be doing right now.
Hmm. Yep.
And I had enough self-awareness at the time to recognize, oh, you need to sit here longer then if this is the situation that you're in, because you're totally missing the point.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But we don't know, learning to rest is actually a skill. It's
Hmm.
not something that is role modeled to us. It is not something that is taught to us, because it involves things like giving ourselves permission. We're not very good at that. It involves putting our needs first. We need to give ourselves permission to put our needs first and then to go, okay, what do I need? What do
Mm-hmm.
I need right now? How am I feeling right now? So many women are numb and completely disconnected from their emotions, apart from guilt, shame, resentment, and frustration, that they
Mm-hmm.
don't know how to access joy
Mm-hmm.
because it's frozen and buried under a whole range of negative emotions. So the more you can learn to process your emotions, to do your best Elsa and learn to let it go, only then can you start accessing joy. But this also, to your point about, you have to experiment. You have to be prepared to fail and go, well, I used to love singing. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
don't like that anymore. Okay, that's not a
Right.
failure. That's a step in the direction of, okay, you don't like that. What else can you try? What else
Right.
can you try?
Right.
And tapping into those childhood memories. If you have kids of your own, how do they can be our best teachers in terms of processing our emotions because they haven't learned to suppress them yet. Finding joy, being present. Kids can be your greatest teacher because they haven't forgotten all the things that you knew once how to do as well.
Right. Oh my gosh. It's so funny that you talk about kind of finding your joy and boundaries and whatnot. My husband and I had a date day a few days ago, and he said, "Do you want to go here? Do you want to go there? What do you?" And I said, "I want to do nothing today." And my husband and I are the same people. We are goers, doers, and it's taken a lot of work. And he said, "Okay." So we didn't. We hung around the house, we watched movies, we just chilled. And I think to your point of giving yourself permission to do nothing, and whatever
Mhm.
that nothing looks like to you, it could be take a nap, read a book, watch a movie, you know, but to be able to be still.
Yeah.
Um, when you think about the clients who you work with, I know a lot of them are probably like you and I were, they're already at that tipping point. They're like
Hmm.
done. Do you ever have the opportunity of working with someone kind of before that point? Do you have some tips or some ideas of, hey, this is what you should look out for so you don't get to this point?
Yeah, I think it's really great that, I mean, it can be a bit overused now, but burnout is becoming more common. It used to be called nervous breakdowns once upon a time, and that sounded very serious. But
Uh-huh.
burnout is now, there's all kinds of stats of between, 50 and 75% of women feel burnt out most of the time. And in certain professions, particularly in healthcare, that can be even worse. But to me, it's really understanding that there can be a level of high functioning burnout where women tend to accept, unfortunately, that being exhausted and running on fumes is just the price when you have, say, a family and you want to have a career too. We're taught that you will feel terrible, that emptiness is okay, you'll be busy, there'll be no time for yourself. Because everyone you talk to is in the same boat. Everybody else is like, oh yeah, so busy. Gosh, what I'd kill for a massage right now. I've had no time for myself. Hubby and I haven't been on a date night in, 3 years. It's
Mhm.
normalized, this high functioning burnout, but eventually it will catch up with you. So my advice is always understand what the signs and symptoms of burnout are. And just because you're functioning doesn't mean that you have to feel like this, that it's
Mhm.
not the price to pay, particularly if you're ambitious and you are a go getter and you are a high achiever. It doesn't have to mean you feel rubbish the whole time.
Yes. Yes. Well, and you talked a little bit earlier about boundaries that your parents staged an intervention. What do you say to your client who um loves their friends and family and isn't ready to just like go on a planet by themselves and say goodbye, and needs to create some boundaries because like you just said, it's normalized. So when those of us step against the norm and start saying, no, that's not aligned, I'm going to say no to that. I'm not going to be in that parent teacher volunteer role anymore. What strategies do you have or tips to help them deal, I guess, with the fallout that comes with
Mm.
aligning with themselves again?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that was impactful for me, and I think is impactful for all my clients, is finding other women on the same journey.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you are the only one who is not wanting to do the things that you've always done. Your friends will look at you, or family, oh my gosh, what happened? You've changed. So
Uh-huh.
really making meaning of those comments, and whether they're overt as you've changed or a little more, you know, passive aggressive, or, sort of underhanded compliments about, oh, you're looking great. Those bangs are a little less than they used to be, or, whatever it is.
Uh-huh.
To me, it's finding people who are also evolving themselves, who prioritize growth, because then the types of things we're talking about here become very normal to you. Suddenly you've got somebody who, oh, wow, they did that. Okay, if they did that, I can do it too. And all right, well, they said this to their parents, they finally stood up to them, or they finally held a boundary. Oh, okay, I'm going to do that too. Because typically, the only people who benefit when you learn to hold boundaries, that you benefit. But what tends to happen is the people who benefit off you having no boundaries obviously don't like you suddenly developing them. When they've taken advantage of you, or when you've picked up all the slack for them, or you've
Mm-hmm.
always come to their rescue. Well, of
Right.
course, they're not going to like it when you change your behavior and put more of it back on them, and you leave them to their own devices. And
Mm-hmm.
so, this is when understanding that boundaries are there to serve you, they're to help you find your alignment. And of course, someone that's benefited from your no boundaries is going to have a reaction to that. But that
Mm-hmm.
becomes evidence that you're changing in the direction that you want, rather than a fear-based response of, oh my gosh, they're not going to love me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they loved a pretend version of me, a conditioned version of me. And I'm
Uh-huh.
going to now go on a journey to find the real me. And then you get to find out who your real friends are. And usually you have to accept that there will be people in your life who you're no longer aligned with, because you're not the same person you were when you met. You're not a match anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But the beautiful part is that people don't realize is that new people come into your world who are a match for the authentic you. And you can form really strong friendships, bonds very, very fast, because you're more authentically you. So rather than seeing it as a loss and that's never going to be replaced, and that childhood friend that you've known since you were 5, you don't want to hang around them anymore. Yeah, you can grieve that friendship. That's okay. But can you be excited for what new possibilities, what new people, what new sides of yourself might be unlocked if you open up to new people that are on a more similar path to you?
I love how you really level set the expectations for that, because then women specifically, men as well, but can step into that space knowing what may or may not happen. On the one hand, I think, to your point of being authentically you and sharing your story as you have today, gives other women the courage to also set boundaries and to do the things that bring them joy. And oh my gosh, if Joe's doing that, then I can do it too, from a space of saying no and creating boundaries, not necessarily the climbing the corporate ladder like we were, um, but also allowing themselves to grieve the people, friends, family, even, who they may step away from or may step out of their lives at that point, and knowing that that's okay. But I think letting your clients know that all of these things are possible gives them even more courage. Okay, I know what may happen.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can step into this. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
And that's definitely, a big part of my journey is I've now worked out, my role in life is to go first. That's sort of what I've always done. And now I'm really stepping into that more. So how do I learn the lessons? I tend to learn in a different way. One of my sort of superpowers is being able to take a situation or a product or a campaign or a business unit and pull it apart and put it back together again in a way that makes sense. And so I've gone on that journey of, okay, this was messy. This is what happened to me. How do I pull apart what actually happened? What's that reflective ability? And how do I now put it back together in a way that someone can now follow without the mess that I had to go through?
Mm-hmm.
And so the more I share my story, to your point, it gives women permission to be messy. It gives women permission to know that they can't control the whole thing, but every step towards greater alignment of themselves, they get more and more courage. They get more and more reinforcement that this feels good. The emptiness starts to go away. They start to find fulfillment and joy. And once you get those first few steps, those first few hits of, oh my gosh, I'm laughing more than I've laughed in so
Mhm.
long, you
Mhm.
never turn back and you
Yes.
never, there can be grief, there can be sadness. It's not necessarily an easy path, but every single one of my clients that takes this journey, and I'm sure the same is said for yours, there's never any regrets
Right.
about becoming who you are, about
Yeah.
everyone seeing the best version of you, of inspiring your children to actually
Mhm.
be authentically themselves rather than the people that they're not. Kids
Mhm.
do what we do, not what we say. So knowing that you get to
Exactly.
break generational patterns, all of these things make it so worthwhile.
And I'm so glad that was the next point that I was going to come to is I would love to know how your children are handling all of this. And I want to clarify that by recognizing early on my mother did everything. So when I had my daughter who's now 9, I thought I had to do everything and be joyous about it. And why am I feeling tired and overworked and overwhelmed? My mom didn't seem to be. She seemed to have had it all together. So creating that space to model for your children, it's okay to go on a date night, or it's okay for you to have a sitter, or it's okay for mommy to step out so that
Mhm.
they can model that later and go, oh, well, my mom took care of herself. She put herself first and I turned out okay. So I don't know how old your children are. So how do you feel like they're understanding what you're doing?
Yes, I have two girls who are 14 and 11.
Oh,
So we're
perfect.
right in the teen tween phase.
Uh-huh.
Uh, it's been, I guess, we've bucked convention almost completely in that I've always wanted to work. When I met my husband, we just had our 17-year wedding anniversary. It's like
Oh,
I'm working. I
congratulations.
am
Uh-huh.
never going to be a stay-at-home mum. I knew that
Uh-huh.
really early on. I
Mm-hmm.
took sort of by Australian standards a short maternity leave, which was 9 months off with my first, and couldn't wait to get back to
Oh,
work.
wow.
And then my husband became primary carer, so he
Mm-hmm.
then took 3 months off, and then he went back to work part-time, and I went back full-time.
Mm-hmm.
So we then switched roles. He was always parent number one. When I had my second, I had 7 months off. And then he was going through some mental health challenges, and his mum passed away, and health challenges. And so he ended up then basically being a stay at home dad. He's had some part time roles. He's started his own business. He became a personal trainer and did that. So he's had a range of different things to keep him occupied.
Uh-huh.
But what my girls have seen is that mum works and mum loves what she do. Although my girls do say when someone says, "Oh, what does your mum do?" She sits at a computer, she talks all day, and she makes people cry. It's apparently what I do. Because they'll be at dinner and they say, "Who'd you make cry today, mum?" I was like, "Well, you." I
Oh,
don't
I
make them
love
cry on
that.
purpose. Um, but they have seen us. My husband and I spend a lot of time on our health. We've traveled overseas to go to see specialists. We have had a range of health coaches, naturopaths. My girls have always seen those types of people. We do kinesiology. I've now straight trained in kinesiology. So they see all of that. They see us taking care of ourselves, exercising, and they come, particularly when they were young, they would come to the PT classes, that the personal training classes that my husband was running. They will
Uh-huh.
see in the morning. Last night, I got up this morning, it was my turn to walk the dog. So when my daughter woke up, nobody was home because my husband was going for a run and I was walking the dog. And there was a note at the bottom of the stairs that said, "Out walking the dog." So
Mm-hmm.
they have this constant role model of, I need to take care of myself. I'm going to bed early. And work is really important to me. And we used to get lots of questions. I still remember a defining moment. So Stella, my little one, was about 3, and daycare came over to me and they said, "I have to tell you about this interaction that Stella had with these other kids." I said, "Oh, what happened?" They were playing mums and dads, and all the boys grabbed the briefcase. And Stella went up to, and the boys said, "The dads go to work." And Stella went up and grabbed the briefcase from the boys and said, "No, no, no, the mummies go to work. The daddies make the dinner." And they had got into this big argument because they were like, no, 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 the mums take care of the babies. We're going to work. And she stomped her feet and yanked that briefcase out of them and said, no, mummies go to work. Daddies take care of the children. Like here she was. This is how generational conditioning happens, right? She was adamant because
I
she'd
love
never
that.
seen anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm raising girls who can do whatever they want. They don't have to be anything,
Mm-hmm.
but they've had a very unconventional upbringing, but they
Mm-hmm.
know that I love what I do. I've always traveled for work. I left when they were, I ended up consulting back to my company when I was on maternity leave. So that's always been part of who I am. I've never hid that. And they know that I'm a better mum because I work.
Mm-hmm. I think that's so important because what really that says is that you follow your intuition, you follow your inner knowing of what's good for you. And I
Mm-hmm.
think so often we all try and fit inside of a box of what we should be.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can all step back and say, because I'm like you, I never wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I wanted to be able to balance it. So I, balance my hours around being home with my daughter, but not having a professional career outside of being a mom was not an option for me.
Yeah.
And I know the other side of being a mom, I have friends who are stay-at-home moms, and that is aligned with them in this season of their life. And I think, and I'm sure that you talk to your clients about this too, is just knowing that neither one of those things are right or wrong. It's what
No.
it's what matters to you. So
Mm-hmm.
I love that so
Yeah.
much. Well, I want to be super respectful of your time. Is there anything that we haven't covered? Any closing just information or tidbits that you want to make sure that the audience hears from you before we finish today?
Yeah, I guess in closing, what's really important to me is, we are told that we can have it all. And there's this whole myth that they say, you can have it all, just not all at once.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I say they lied because
Uh-huh.
you can't have the all that society has prescribed to you because that's not possible. But when you learn what your all is, what matters to you, then you can have all that when you have the tools, when you can listen to that intuition and build that alignment, then it is possible to have this beautiful life where you have joy, where you have calm and peace, and you take care of yourself and you nurture your relationships, and you can have a fulfilling career if that's something that you choose. So you can have your all, but you have to work out what that is.
Yes. Oh, beautiful. How can people get in touch with you? I want to make sure that they know how to follow you, where to find you, all the things.
Yeah, obviously they listen to a podcast. So I also have my own podcast called Balance and Beyond. So they can jump onto that where I tell all kinds of interesting stories in my usual quirky Australian way. And also they can visit balanceinstitute.com where they can see details of what I do, how I help. And there's lots of free masterclasses and things in there as well, talking about the tools and everything that I share.
I love it. Awesome. Well, I will have all of that and more in the show notes for everyone listening. Thank you all today. And thank you so much for being on today, Joe.
Thanks for having me.
As we close out today's episode, I want to leave you with this. Your next level is already within you. If you're feeling that pull for more clarity, more alignment, and more courage to step fully into who you're meant to be, this is your invitation to take the next step. Whether you're an entrepreneur ready to scale or a woman standing at the edge of something bigger, the path forward starts with trusting your desires, owning your worth, and leading with your inner knowing. This is exactly what I offer. Private VIP coaching, and where I guide women inside the 10K Club and 50K Club through consulting with She Sells and Superhuman Selling to help you gain clarity, step into aligned action, and build a life and business that reflects your highest vision. If you're ready to explore what's next, let's have a conversation. Book a free call now at www.corywin.com/free call. I can't wait to connect with you. Talk soon.